Good afternoon, everyone. Delighted to be here with all of you, and we're going to begin today by welcoming our newest board members, Deputy Mayor Phil Thompson and Lincoln Ressler, the Mayor's Deputy Chief of Staff. I've had the pleasure of working with both of them, working very closely with both of them, and it brings me great joy to welcome them to this committee. And I know that both of them bring great insight and experience that will serve us well as we work to serve our communities. And again, I'm delighted to have them on board as we head into our new quarter. We've got lots of adventure ahead of us. I'd like to talk about Puerto Rico first. As many of you know, I brought a team to Puerto Rico where people are still suffering physically and emotionally, even as the new hurricane season begins. Led by the Mayor's Fund, New York City rallied to support the people of Puerto Rico in a very big way, including by raising more than $1.5 million in supplies for the evacuees. I went to offer New York City's support to help communities heal the unseen wounds, the invisible wounds brought on by this disaster. And with the Hispanic Federation, we committed $200,000 to strengthen the behavioral health services at Puerto Rico's community health centers. We also help train trainers and mental health first aid trainers who are specialized. They receive specialized training so that they could guide the folks who've been through the disaster through the trauma that they've experienced. As you know, mental health first aid teaches people to identify their emotions and the mental illness and substance use disorders that are brought on by triggers, but this is a specialized training that helps these folks become trainers themselves to help the children in the schools throughout Puerto Rico. And that's the power of the Mayor's Fund, to bring sectors together to meet serious needs. Now, there's so much potential in our model to create lasting systemic change at the Mayor's Fund. With Thrive NYC, we're demonstrating what it means to put the full force of city's resources, not just government, into mental wellness of our people. For example, Connections to Care is revolutionizing how people get treatment, and when federal government pulled funding, we had that wonderful White House Social Innovation Grant, but when they pulled the funding, the Mayor's Fund was able to step in and fill that gap. We brought partners across city government, the private sector together to offer opportunities for young people without networks and resources to get ahead. And we actually hit our goal of 100,000 summer jobs for our young people, 2 years ahead of schedule. So you can applaud. Applaud yourselves. Pretty amazing. And we're taking on other tough challenges like criminal justice reform. Yesterday, we hosted a baby shower on Rikers Island, and I was working to help detained mothers get better quality visits with their children, even off-site. We're working with the Children's Museum of Manhattan and other vendors to accomplish this. The mothers are very excited. It was the best baby shower we've held ever at Rikers, and I know that we've laid a foundation that we can continue to build on. And we've begun an effort with public funding to continue this effort, and we're looking to private funds to build on it. And again, I have great hope that we're going to be able to be a model program, not just with Rikers in New York City, but for other cities as well. So I want to thank you all for your commitment, for everything that you've done to make these programs a success. We've had a fantastic half year, and I know that the next 6 months will bring even more, and we'll be even better at it. So thank you.
Thank you. And it's always great to sort of get your sort of context and perspective of the work, as we sort of get together every couple months to go through our business at hand. We don't have a ton on the agenda today, guys, and let me echo the First Lady in welcoming our two new board members. Thank you for the commitment and the service. To start off, we're going to take our first action, which actually Lincoln and Phil, you can sort of sit this one out. But I'm going to ask the board to refer to your minutes in our packet. and to, I'll take a motion, actually, to approve those meeting minutes unless there are any questions or issues that you want to raise.
So moved.
Terrific.
Second.
Thank you, Gabrielle. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Terrific. The motion on those minutes are carried and adopted. Now getting to a little bit of the business at hand. We've got our first three resolutions are handling mainly administrative matters, appointing some board members and putting one of our board members on a committee. And so I'll ask you to flip to resolution number 1, which is our first resolution to appoint Deputy Mayor Phil Thompson to our board of directors. Unless there are any questions or objections, I'll ask for a motion on the resolution.
Moved.
Thank you. Second?
Second.
Terrific. All in favor?
Is this open for debate, or?
You know, feel free to take that on if you want. I'll take all questions or critiques. I think Phil can probably take about any questions you want to throw at him.
He says bring it.
I did hear, I heard a motion.
Bringing it for a long, long time.
Yeah, he's been waiting.
Back from his days as a city councilman.
Before that.
I heard a motion, I heard a second. Can I have all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Terrific, thank you. You can now turn your attention to resolution number 2. Again, it's a resolution to appoint a new member to our board. That would be Lincoln Ressler, who's a deputy chief of staff here in the mayor's office. I'll take any questions, but if there are none, I'd ask for a motion for the resolution.
So moved.
A second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Terrific. Motion carries. Thank you, Lincoln. Thank you, Phil. Looking forward to your partnership. The third resolution is, as we're required to have under Public Authority Accountability Act, we're required to have 3 committees that help us in some of our work. One of them is an Audit and Finance Committee, and one of them is a Governance Committee. We've worked closely with Matt on a lot of our activities and think that he'd bring a real sort of good perspective to both those committees. So I'm going to ask the board to approve a motion to appoint Matt to both those committees. Are there any questions?
So moved.
Terrific, thanks. Yeah, thank you. Can I have a second on the motion?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Terrific, thank you, guys. All right, resolutions 4 through 6 are a little bit more substantive on the day's work. As you all know, or for new board members to remind you, our board bylaws requires to bring to you our board approval any actions over $250,000 or any contracts for operations and services over $25,000. I'm going to ask Toya, can you come up and join us, please? Toya Williford, our Director of Program and Policy, is going to join us for any questions on any of these items. She and her team sort of carry a lot of the load in terms of working with both funding partners, program partners on our activities. So in addition to that experience and a significant body of work, she brings a great insight to the work at hand. I'm going to turn our attention to the 4th resolution on our agenda. This is a contract. I'm going to be seeking your approval for $637,000, $755 to support NILAG, which is the New York Legal Assistance Group. This is a contract and services that were started actually in 2016. 2016, thank you. Thank you. And we've amended it once since then. This is actually a second amendment. Robin Hood, the program funder, along with Carnegie and Citi, are looking for us to extend this work through the summer into the end of August. This is your authorization for us to enter into that agreement. Those are the basics. Any questions on the point? Or
What is the actual program that we're extending?
Sure. So the city is supporting a number of different services for legal, for immigrant communities through Moya. This one is specifically supporting those in an NYC citizenship action. So it's all about legal services with individuals on the road to citizenship, as opposed to some of the other sort of civil legal services and other actions that people ask for. Do you want to add anything?
How much private funding has there been thus far?
So there's been about $2 million over the last 2 years, and we actually received some public funding from NYC Opportunity to support the project. So this particular contract is just private funding. As Darren said, Moya supports a variety of legal services for immigrant communities, and that public funding is about $35 million, and about 31 of that 35 is targeted towards a variety of legal services. As Darren said, this is specifically targeting legal permanent residents who were on their way to citizenship, so they had like that one final hurdle, whatever that could be, to become a citizen, and that really provides them the most protection for their stability here.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Did you have a question? Any? No?
How many people have you served,
Let's see.
roughly?
Roughly. We've completed about 1,400 citizenship applications and served about 1,600 clients. And yeah. There you go.
Terrific.
Move the resolution.
Terrific, thank you. Can I have a second?
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Terrific. That resolution carries. Thank you. Resolution number 5 is an action to approve $915,000 contract with Sanctuary for Families. This is actually also in our immigration portfolio. This contract and these services here are actually, though, uniquely placed at our Family Justice Centers, which is also a program that the Mayor's Fund incubated several years ago. And the FJCs, for folks who aren't familiar, are bringing a variety of different services into that one sort of family justice setting, working with intimate partner violence and those dealing with domestic violence. So this is legal services in that setting. The funder for this contract, again, is Robin Hood, specifically on this one. And anything else you want to add?
I would say for this, it's been a long-standing partnership we have with Robin Hood, and it supports legal services at 3 of the 5 family justice centers. And as you know, the family justice centers provide a variety of services. This is one of those services that they provide.
Just 3 of the 5?
Yeah, just 3 of the
What-
5.
High need. They were focused on the high need areas. And Staten Island is only about a year underway since its launch.
Right.
But they were focusing on, and oddly enough, I think Manhattan is actually a low use FJC compared to
Really?
Brooklyn, Queens, and the Bronx. And so Robin Hood wanted to focus on both the highest use FJCs, but also the ones that are seeing an overage of immigrant community, immigrant needs.
And is that every day? Are they there full-time?
Yes, they are there full-time. One
Okay.
attorney is there full-time.
Thank you.
All right, if there are no other questions, can I have a motion?
Do we expect an increase in demand for services in light of the new federal policies around asylees?
We do anticipate that demand. We're not sure how that will show up in the family justice centers because a lot of the women and men, but mostly women who are seeking services there are survivors of domestic violence, and so they tend to be dealing with housing issues, filing for orders of protection, and certain other applications that will provide their safety. So we can definitely report back to the board what we're seeing at the family justice centers as it relates to the types of legal services and applications that are filed.
I think one of the challenges that we've seen in this space is the demand for services so far outpaces even the large public investments that have been made in the space. And so part of what we're trying to figure out is where and how can we use some of the private dollars and to inform even some of the public spending on sort of more efficient, effective ways to deploy services. So to one of Toya's points, one of the things that we've been trying to figure out is can we find high impact but low cost services. So who's literally one step away from being able to achieve citizenship, and how can we help them on that versus what's frequently the case are very time-intensive processes with other cases that take, hours and days to go through. So how can we work with some of the legal service providers and some of our funders to figure out just how to sort of push more individuals through the system? Yeah. I think I heard a motion.
Not yet.
Okay, can I have a motion to move the action? Thank you. A second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Terrific. I'm going to turn our attention to resolution number 6. This is our final action of the day. This is an interesting one. It's outside of our immigration portfolio, and this is actually focused on sustainability. This would be an action for ICF Resources LLC to receive a $418,000 contract and grant to help the Mayor's Office of Sustainability with their NYC Retrofit Accelerator. For those who haven't thoroughly read One NYC's plan and what we're doing in some of these areas, one action of the plan is how we can help retrofit existing buildings, mid and large-sized buildings, for better energy usage, water usage, and the like. The Mayor's Office of Sustainability had actually entered into an agreement. They had done a competitive RFP process for support in this space. ICF won that competitive process. That work got underway in 2015. And then when this funding opportunity came along, Astoria Energy had been seeking programs that would help in a sustainability space in Queens, and we explored with some of our partners what might be a nice fit. This came out from Mayor's Office of Sustainability. Astoria Energy liked the idea, and this gave rise to this contract and this proposed action.
So, personalized advisory services, who do those services go to?
So they're targeting building owners or managers or decision makers is really what they're trying to do, of units, of buildings that are 50,000 square feet or more. And the conversation is, how can you bring in new boilers and update your boiler system?
Are they residential or commercial buildings?
Largely residential. But I think there's a mix, but most of it is residential.
Do we engage with the tenants and residents as well as the building owners?
I don't think so, but I'll check and get back to you.
It's a flag.
Yeah.
In my experience, the tenants often don't believe the numbers of the building owners.
Yep.
And you can't retrofit a building without their cooperation.
Right.
And so having a trusted sort of third-party validator is kind of crucial. Even if, you do an audit of the building and a plan, if the tenants literally don't trust the owners, and if they're going to be savings, if it's not transparent who gets the benefit of those savings, et cetera, or if the owners can use it for a major MCI exemption so that rents can go up and all that, the tenants, if all that stuff isn't talked out ahead of time, tenants often won't cooperate.
Understood.
So
And
it's
a
a
very
question.
well might be in the process and plan that they have underway. Our lens into that plan is this specific, but we obviously sort of
Those are just questions.
peel out. No, those are terrific questions, and we'll 100% follow up with Dan Zarelli and his team and understand what they're doing and get that plan out there.
Okay.
Good questions.
I'll move the resolution. Excuse me, I'll move the resolution.
Terrific. Thank you, Henry. You have a second?
Second.
Second, Gab. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Terrific. That resolution carries. Thank you. The next two items are really just informational. We do this every time we meet with you guys. Just wanted to flip your attention to a little bit of a sort of financial review on where we are. The first page goes through our assets. You can see the year-to-year change in asset holdings. The last, one of our previous meetings, we talked about our increasing work to try to sort of realize some investment earnings at a time when we need to be extremely careful with the principle of the funds, since almost all the funds we receive are earmarked for a very specific program or action. So there really is very little room or tolerance for any kind of losses. So being able to yield gains with that criteria tends to be a little bit complicated, but you'll see a little bit of our change in operating and program dollars over the last couple of years. We remain in solid fiscal footing for all of our commitments and all our obligations. The next chart, again, we try to give you guys some kind of historic points of reference into where our fundraising is. It's only one metric we use to guide our work, but it gives you guys a sense of the activity and activity levels year to year and over time. And then the last chart, this is a...
Before you leave the second
Yeah, please.
chart, just remind me, there's a small bump and a big spike. What were the occasions of those?
In our tenure, going back,
back.
yeah, so going back, the most recent spike in the 12-13 time era, that was Sandy.
That's Sandy.
Yeah, so that was Sandy and a lot of effort that came in there. The one before that was Young Men's Initiative, which brought in $85 million and was a little bit of an outlier there, yeah. The last chart in this section, what we've tried to do over the last couple of years was give you all some kind of contextual framework about The funds being raised, the dollars being raised, the efforts of different city agencies and different projects and programs that we're helping advance. This was a chart that Fred Begley, who is our Director of Finance and Operations, he's dealing with a personal health issue today, couldn't join us. This is something that he's been sort of playing with, how to sort of depict and offer some direction and some eyes on something like this for you. So this is something he came up with to just give you a sense of, over the last fiscal year, where dollars came to, where they flowed. You can obviously see connections to care as a top issue, a top item with a little over $3 million there. Summer youth employment, not surprising. We've done a lot of focus on that. And as you skim down, you'll see a couple different, workforce and youth workforce efforts related to CYE and otherwise. But I mean, what's always interesting and what we talk about with pride is a lot of our value is creating partnerships with and across city agencies, but also how we're helping a city agency or an office with something that's their priority. So it might not be one of our areas of focus, but helping them do the work as a priority. And so you can see, for instance, NYC Service, which has had some great success with some federal grants utilizing the mayor's fund, so they're high on this list. I'll also note that you have Building Healthy Communities, which we've been doing with the Mayor's Office of Strategic Partnerships and our friends at Department of Health and at MOCJ. You'll see them on this list, as well as some of our relief efforts and the like.
I'm really excited to see you have a heat pump pilot. I'm kind of a heat pump fanatic.
I heard that.
So I'd love to learn more about that.
Well,
That's
we'll
great.
make sure we set up some time with you and Dan, because I think between that and the retrofit accelerator, they've
Yeah.
got.
I think there are three of us in the city.
Well, he's going to be thrilled to have a third added to that team. Anyone who can identify that and say, yeah, let me geek out on that. I think that's is a good spot. So anyway, so that's a little picture of our finances and where we are. The last thing in the book is a little review of some of our recent press clips and activity. And as you're flipping through that, I just wanted to, just as part of a little bit of a executive director report, I just wanted to highlight a couple things that have happened over the last few months that I think you all might find interesting. For one, if you didn't see the announcement in the release, we had several new additions to our board of advisors, some really, really top talent that we're excited about. You hate to name names when there's a big group of great folks, but some of them, Neil Blumenthal from Warby Parker, founder and CEO, Val Carletti, who's the executive VP of Sotheby's, Deborah Martin Chase, terrific television and film producer, Marilyn Simons, great philanthropist, and Ellen Alamany, who's the CEO of CIT. Trying to find, as we've always done, I think trying to find good representation of both industry, community, perspective, and I think that the group, those 4 or 5 names, and the group really does a great job. Thank you to Gab, by the way, for just helping, just sort of identify folks who have a real civic interest and some of our civic leaders to join. So you've been terrific on that. Additionally, want to provide a quick update on our CNCS audit related to the last SIF, last administration SIF. We got the questions raised by the Office of the Investigator General, the OIG's office. They raised several questions. CNCS is still reviewing those questions. We continue to answer some follow-ups that they have. As you all have heard, this is an issue that we think is, we strongly disagree with the OIG's findings, and considering that CNCS was well aware of everything we were doing, as we were doing it, why we were doing it, and how we were doing it. We think that there's some really solid ground that we have there, but letting the process play out, no updates to offer right now. A point that the First Lady raised, worth noting, there was some concern around a $4 million loss in federal dollars when the Trump administration completely eliminated the Social Innovation Fund, which was funding dozens of programs around the country to the tune of hundreds of millions of dollars of support. So ours was but a small piece of it. What I'm proud to bring up is that the Department of Health and Mental Hygiene and the city's Office of Management budget have agreed to backstop the $4 million lost there, with not insignificant lobbying, I think, from us and from our program partners who are seeing some real results with the model. And so that's interesting for us for 2 reasons. One is it lets us keep the program going through its 5-year conclusion. But part of our goal in this had always been to really introduce a new approach to community-based mental health. And so, which would eventually dovetail with city funding that could scale it. And so for us, we always expected that transition to happen. We thought it would be a little later in the game. We didn't think it would be taking the place of needed resources for this modeling period. But to us, it's actually a positive step towards some kind of real commitment to the model and to the approach. So that's been very positive. The last thing I want to note is we've had some really interesting and I think value-added convenings over the last couple months. We joined with Altman Foundation to bring in probably about 12 or 15 different city agency partners around the topic of how to bring better mental health supports to our immigrant supporting and serving CBOs, community-based organizations. Altman has been a big cheerleader of Connections to Care. They don't fund us directly. They're funding a pooled fund we have that's supporting the CBOs doing the work. But they've seen the model, they were excited about the model, and as they were trying to find different ways to support their network of immigrant service providers, they came to us and said, is there an approach that we can bring Connections to Care into that work? We convened probably 4 or 5 different city agencies and offices, started to brainstorm the topic. That culminated in a sit-down a couple weeks ago with 5 different funding partners, a bunch of different city agency partners, starting to unpack what's there. A lot of positives come out of that, and so we're hoping to, over the weeks ahead, to sort of just see if there's room to advance C2C in that space with those funders. So we'll see what happens, but a lot of excitement and a really positive convening. Talking about Connections to Care, twice a year we do a convening with all of the partners involved, 100 to 150 different partners from the community-based organizations, the funders, the mental health providers in the health space, as well as government partners and just other academics and researchers doing work around the space. It's a convening to share, it's knowledge sharing, it's experience sharing, it's talking about the challenges that anyone is facing and how we can kind of adapt some of the workings as we go along. Again, very positive discussion. I think probably 2 of the more exciting pieces was Alexis Confer came and delivered to the group the information about the $4 million that the city is supporting. But the other neat announcement we're able to make is that I mentioned this pooled fund that we have, where we've raised probably about 1 to 1.5 million already in support of the CBOs. But we've been working with Helmsley, which has been thinking about new ways to adjust their areas of focus, and has been looking at mental health as an approach. And Helmsley's director came to the meeting and announced that they dedicated $1 million over the next 2 years to support the CBOs in our project. I mean, it was so you can imagine a room full of CBOs took quite kindly to the information, but it was a great announcement, and their partnership's been terrific. They've actually done some work, I think, with NYC Opportunity on the data related. Yeah, and also with Barbara Turk. They've been doing some real work on the food access. Yeah,
That
exactly.
is really terrific.
Yeah, no, and they've consistently been looking for spots where there's, a real shortage of funders and how they can kind of make an impact.
Well, let me mention one. I met last week with the Parks Commissioner.
Yeah.
And he has a whole raft of studies on how parks really help people deal with stress and how important parks are for mental health. And I thought that was, when you think about it, obvious, but that may be an area, like if there are programs that, could actually get people more engaged with,
We should talk about doing that in connection with Connections to Care, those specific communities, to see if there's something.
Yeah.
I mean, the Parks Department is part of our mental health council, so they bring those ideas to us regularly.
Right.
But I think that we may be in a position to do something more specific, which would be.
That'd be great.
Well,
he's really interested in this and passionate
Oh, yeah,
about it,
Mitchell's
so
great.
I didn't,
It's great.
yeah.
No, I mean, just whether it's the sort of the tearing down the fences in parks to sort of create a more sort of open, accessible sort of park system. But part of that, and I think part of what we've been trying to do with Thrive, and I look to Gab, who's been driving the Building Healthy Communities, trying to figure out how our physical space can do some of this.
Well, I was this morning at Wagner Houses at our farm at Wagner, an acre and a half farm at Wagner Houses in East Harlem. Built and maintained by young NYCHA residents, delivered 6 farms. This is a Mayor's Fund project and Fund for Public Health as well. 6 farms in each borough have delivered 32,000 pounds of food for NYCHA residents, but even, more importantly, one of the young women working the farm said to me this morning, I was looking out my window for 3 years at the farm, and one of my friends came through a 10-month program, AmeriCorps program, came through the program, and she has changed. Her sense of, she's turned her life around from this. And I thought, well, if she can do it, I can do it. So it's a 93% job rate when they leave the 10 months at the farm. So the idea of an acre and a half of greenery, which was asphalt, and everybody looking at it, the open space and those aspects for all the residents, the resident engagement, the young people with workforce development skills, the kind of cross-sectional notes that these things can hit within a community are incredibly powerful. And I could go on, but I won't.
No, and
many of those young people go on
Yeah.
to careers in agriculture,
That's right.
which is
They have
amazing. They never would have thought that they would do this. kind of thing.
Composting,
Yes.
the sustainability aspects, the job aspect, and this program's particularly focused on workforce development as well as healthy food and wellness.
Well, and to the Deputy Mayor's point, one of the things that I think Thrive has created is talking to agencies and agency leadership about how they're knowing that information, about how a park is advancing mental health and health needs. How do we, and they're spending billions all the time on this, how do you make that more intentional, of park building and support?
Right.
How do you make it more intentional if that's a benefit? What can we help them introduce that maybe gets there further? I know Mitch is very open.
Well, yeah, he has a lot of ideas.
Yeah.
But I thought it was great. I mean, one is kayaking down the Bronx River, which I think for someone who's stressed out, that could really be a great experience.
Might add some stress for some people, might reduce it for others, no doubt about it. That's a good one, thank you. The 2 really last quick convenings that are, I think, worth noting, given our role. And one was a couple weeks ago, we joined, we brought together a bunch of leaders, and you'll find this particularly interesting, I think, in the workforce and youth workforce space to celebrate the 3rd-year anniversary of our Center for Youth Employment, which we launched, with the mayor, shortly into our first year. The mayor had set some pretty ambitious goals for us around 100,000 youth served every year, and and jobs and mentorship and skills building, how we can focus more on vulnerable populations, providing experiences for kids in foster care and other system-involved youth. We were able to announce a couple of Fridays ago that the city as a whole had reached over 100,000 youth served in 1 year. And to me, I mean, that is a collective celebration. I mean, that is something that our city at large should be proud about, because there are hundreds, if not thousands, of partners supporting that. So you have the employers, you have the service providers, you have the schools and communities that are driving kids to it. And I know I don't need to tell this group the transformational effect that early work can have on youth and that trajectory. So we were thrilled to hear that. I also put around the table a case study that one of our funding partners, City Foundation, had asked us to undertake with them and folks like the Partnership for New York City and Goldman Sachs and others, having been founding partners of the center. As funders, they really wanted to get a sense of, did this model take hold? Did it work? What worked? What didn't? We wanted a kind of quick review of that. Didn't want to get too dense, didn't want another report sitting on the shelf, but really wanted some sort of key takeaways that could inform the rest of our work, and so I left that for you there. And the only thing I want to mention is we do this every year in July. We're getting ready to host our annual meeting for all of the city agency partners that do partnership building work, that work with us directly or work on their own to help build and sustain partners in advance of their activities. This year we have Lori Slutsky from New York Community Trust has agreed to join us as a keynote speaker, and we also have a presentation with Poses Foundation and Commissioner Khaleesi and MOPED, Mayor's Office of People with Disabilities, which is doing some really, really interesting work around a project called New York City at Work, working with disabled population in New York, getting them job ready, working with employers who are seeing some great skill sets and asset transfer. So just excited to be able to highlight and promote and show folks the labor of that, of those efforts and the model itself. So those are the big highlights I have.
One thing I'd like to bring
yeah,
up.
please,
with you
please.
is, I know that all of us here at this table have heard a lot with what's going on at the border and in Texas, and many people have come to us and asked us, what can we do? So, and I know you've been exploring some possibilities. Do we have any ideas yet?
I don't have something tangible yet for you, but we have been exploring it. I know the mayor and the mayor's office is looking a lot at this and how we can sort of deploy resources and support, whether that's here locally or whether that's on the border. We're also starting to talk to some funders about their interest in sort of finding a way for New York. I mean, this is what the Mayor's Fund does. It sort of tries to collect the civic goodwill of New Yorkers and see how we can export that. There is absolutely a nexus here with both. I mean, when we've been talking to folks at Moya and externals about this, both in terms of those seeking asylum in this country having some kind of family or grounding here in New York City, that's a pretty significant effect. But also, as we're all learning over the last couple of days, that New York City and the state really have being directly affected as the feds send folks here. So we'll continue to explore that in short order, and I'll follow up.
Is there any thought to opening a tab on our website to take donations from New Yorkers who want to give to those organizations that are working directly with the children and families?
Yep. So the two things that we're exploring at this point is whether there's interventions that we're going to be able to drive, in which case we're raising dollars to help advance that. And if not, then shifting to what we've done in other relief efforts, which is that kind of, here are groups that we vetted and that we know are doing really important work on the ground, and just promoting that to New Yorkers and how they can contribute directly and not deal with us. So we're looking at both those.
And how soon do you think we'll have that?
Hopefully before the end of the week, we'll have some guidance about what we're doing one or another.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for that, though. Good spots. That's our business for the day. If there's no other questions or issues, I'll ask for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Thanks. Second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Terrific. Thank you all.
Right.
Thanks a bunch.
I'm going to take this.
Yes, please.
I met with the Mexican